You're working 12-hour days, but barely hitting quota. Your calendar's a mess of scattered activities. You can't seem to stay consistent with any routine. You're constantly distracted and reactive. Here's the harsh truth. Your productivity tools are actually slowing you down. Today, I'm going to share with you the exact routine that transforms average reps into top performers. You'll learn my proven frameworks that turns chaos into consistent results. Hey, I'm Marcus Shan. I'm a sales trainer and coach of the fastest growing companies and reps in the world. I've used this system to manage and grow a 9-figure sales organization even before I started my own business. I've personally have mentored dozens of President's Club winners. I'm going to show you today the 4-part productivity system that I've trained enterprise reps and leaders at Fortune 500 companies down to startups. Let's dive in. Number 1, the 7-figure calendar. Here's why most sales routines fail. Number 1, lack of intentional design, and number 2, lack of objective measurements. The reality is most sales professionals wake up to whatever's on their calendar and they kind of show up haphazardly to whatever is actually on there. This could be internal meetings, or they just find ways to get really busy and ultimately fall victim to whatever's coming into their inbox. That could be in Slack or their email inbox, and they end up being really reactive to their calendar. And what ends up happening is suddenly they realize, oh crap, it's almost quarter end, or oh crap, it's almost month end, it's almost year end. This is a very, very tough way to live. That's the number one reason why most routines fail, is that there's no design as part of it. The second piece is the objective measurement. So they lack objective ways to measure, hey, was today actually a productive day? Was this week actually a productive week? And because they don't have objective measurements, they're just falling to whatever KPIs or companies giving to them, if there are KPIs. So ultimately what ends up happening is you become very reactive to whatever your company is telling you to do, or what your inbox is showing, or what your Slack is showing you as well. So instead, I'm going to teach you what I call the PACER method. And the PACER method is a very simple 5-part framework where you categorize everything on your calendar into 5 core buckets. So first, P, that's personal. That's your family stuff or your personal stuff. And this is where you have time blocks in your calendar for actually quality time. This can be with families, connecting with friends, or you can just be present in the moment. Now for me personally, I color code this actually purple. So any time block I have is purple. I know that's like personal or family time. And for me, in my calendar, if you were to look at it, you'll see, school events with my kid, going on field trips, things he might have going on, sporting events he might have, activity, stuff like that. So that's very, very important to me. So P is for personal. After P, we have A, which is admin and action. And these are things where I want you to think require movement. So these are like meetings, you're managing things that are operational, they're sales call. So you're doing things, and often lots of different tasks all throughout as part of it, right? And for me, I mark this as red in my calendar. So this way, when I see a bunch of red, I know these are the admin or actions I must do to make stuff happen. Next, we're going to C, which is creation. And this is where I call that like deep work. So this is like I'm building, I'm writing, I'm designing. This requires a lot of intentional brain power and focus to really build. And reality is it's very hard to have these creation moments in like 30-minute blocks or even hour blocks. Ideally, I need large swaths of time to really unleash the creative in my brain and get into the right mode to really build something absolutely fantastic. For instance, for you, that might be something like doing deep research and creating an executive point of view for one of your top 5 largest enterprise opportunities. Next, we go into E, which is enrichment. And this I color green. This is stuff that's going to fuel growth. So this is stuff like learning, reading, listening. So for me, that's like, it could be reading books. Maybe I'm watching an online course, or I'm watching a YouTube video that's going to help enrich me. Maybe I'm attending a mastermind, but ultimately, this is fueling growth. And this is really important because for me personally, whenever I'm learning and growing, I just feel better, and I can take those same things I'm learning to apply to my own business, to whatever I'm working on as well. And then we have R of the PACER, which is recovery and reflection. And this I color yellow. And this is stuff that allows you to really recover mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This could be journaling, ideation. This could be just stillness, literally just going on a walk or meditating, right? It can be mental recovering. I also build in working out as well. So again, these are really key things for me as well, because just like an athlete, you're going to work really hard, but you also need recovery time just to make sure you can always optimize your performance. Now with the pacer method, these are just loaded right into my calendar with different color blocks so I can see how I'm actually executing my day. Now there's a couple key points though, is ideally I am time blocking the most common categories together. So for instance, once I started doing this method, I realized, I had a lot of red action that was spread throughout like the whole week. And once I realized that, I was constantly switching tasks, trying to multitask. I was context switching, and then I go from one meeting to the task, and it'd be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I'd feel mentally exhausted. Versus if I know I have 1 or 2 or 3 days where it's purely action, just doing these things, having meetings, having calls, executing, doing these things that are more transactional, if you will, then if I can time block them together, this allows me larger swaths of time for the creation or for recovery or for enrichment or for family stuff. So I highly recommend for you also time block together. And when you color code that the same way I mentioned, this makes it far easier for you to see visually where your blocks are going and how they're aligned to work towards that. So here's what I recommend to make this very, very tactical. Because you might be thinking this is a great idea, but how can I incorporate this immediately? Well, the first step is you also want to realize, what does excellence look like? What does the perfect routine look like? So I recommend taking out a very, very simple Google sheet, right? And literally, you can have the very top Monday through Friday, or you can have the whole week if you like. And from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, built out in just different chunks. And then you go out and you build out what your perfect week would look like, and you color code accordingly. Incorporate all 5 components of the PACE method inside, and what would the ideal perfect week look like? So you can see on the screen my ideal perfect week from the time I wake up, from doing working out, breath work, to time with my family, to deep work blocks, to action blocks, to recovery blocks, to enrichment blocks, and all those key things as well. And this is what I strive to work towards. Now, does it mean that I'm perfect and I run 100% every single week? Absolutely not, because stuff just happens, right? It's more so of just having a good ideal to work towards. And when you have a clear ideal to work towards, even if you're like 50% that week, you being 50% of that perfect week is still far better than being reactive and just living by whatever's hitting your Slack inbox or your email inbox. When you are intentional and you are proactive with designing that perfect week, this allows you to have this ideal to work towards. And this way, you can always make tweaks over time, but for the most part, you're doing your best to work towards the things that are most important for you. So make sure to take the time to actually build out what your perfect week looks like, just like how I have my perfect CEO week. Then once you have built it out, you can go into your Google Calendar or your Microsoft Outlook calendar, and you can start color coding in colors that make sense for you within that pacer method. This is how you build an intentional 7-figure routine that you can work towards every single day. So the second piece of 7-figure routine are objective measurements. So you want to identify what are the core metrics that really drive your results. And this is aside from what your company may be measuring. You want to have your own that you can measure intentionally. So this way if you're moving the needle on the right things aside from the pacer method. So let's talk about at least the core 3. And you might have other ones, but at the very baseline, you should have discovery calls completed, your win rate, and your ACV, your average contract value. Now, these are the core ones, but ultimately these tell you the greatest levers to pull to actually drive your results. You always want to have an idea exactly where you stand if you're doing the right thing as part of your routine. Because if the numbers are off, then you can identify the core issues and work to fix that to actually improve any of those categories. Now, those are the key ones, but you can obviously get more granular in your CRM, right? Like we do. For instance, we have so many more inside our CRM, from the outbound metrics, open rates, connect rates, show up rates, etc. But I know I mentioned just the core 3 things of discovery calls, completed win rate, ACV. Those pretty much drive everything else from a sales perspective. Now, the second part of the productivity system is what's called the 12-week year. Now, I didn't coin this term, but this is from a really well-known book where the concept is instead of focusing on a whole year, you focus on chunking it out into basically quarters, if you will, which a quarter is 13 weeks, but then you bridge into 12 weeks, so you also have a week of recovery as well. And ultimately, that means you are really clear on a clear strategy for your rolling 12 weeks, every 12 weeks to execute on. So here's what I personally do. Now, before the quarter starts, identify what my biggest 2 to 3 core rocks or goals are for the quarter. These are the biggest ones that have the biggest impact on my business, right? So for a sales professional like you, you're going to identify what are my biggest core goals for the quarter. Then I take that big core rock or goal and I break it down to micro steps for each goal. What are all the steps A to Z that I must do to get myself to that goal, or at least increase my likelihood of success for that? And then of course, each micro step is assigned to a week within that 12-week quarter, if you will, of when I'll tackle it. This now drives everything. This gives me a clear focus every single week, every single day, because ultimately I know when I execute this plan, it increases my likelihood of actually hitting the goals I want to go after. So for instance, last quarter, we were ramping up our sales team training offer, so my actions broke down into the following. Write out clearly the exact ICP, pain points, and issues. Do it for each persona we sell it into. Build out a hyper-targeted list. Write out the sequence for each persona. Execute on prospecting 3 by 5, which is 3 new accounts per week and 5 contacts. Then rinse and repeat. The result, we generate over 500,000 pipeline as a result, and we're just getting warmed up. It's a simple plan, executed wildly well. So I highly recommend, instead of measuring for your whole year, break it into chunks like 12 weeks or a smaller time frame so you can really be targeted in your weekly and daily actions. Okay, next, number 3, daily actions that drive results. So the first piece is what I call plan tomorrow today. So here's the issue most people run into, which is if you have empty white space on your calendar for the next day, that means you'll be making decisions on the spot. And oftentimes we do what's easy versus what's required for success. So that usually means, hey, we have some free time for an hour, a couple hours, or a large swath of time. We're checking our inbox, we're pulling up Slack. We lack intention with what we actually want to focus on. So instead, the solution is simple, which is you simply just plan tomorrow today. So I literally have in my calendar 30 minutes at the end of each workday to plan the next day. So I take a look, say, hey, where's my white space on my calendar? I look at my 12-week year plan, and then I add in blocks based on that. So this way I can focus on the right things that are actually going to move the needle. And here's a hint. They'll usually fall inside the blocks of the pacer method I shared earlier as well. The second part to the daily action that drives results is going to be my daily win system. And here's part of the challenge. You'll have literally days, weeks go by, maybe months, even quarters, and you're not even sure what has happened. And if you didn't get the result that you're going for, you might end up beating up yourself saying, I'm just a terrible person. I don't know if I can make it in sales. Maybe I should give up. Maybe I should leave the company, whatever. And that's a real issue. And this is something I really struggle with, especially early on, because days and weeks would go by and I'll look back and think I had nothing to show for, especially if my numbers didn't reflect what I was hoping it would reflect. So the solution was what I call the daily win system. And it's really, really simple. And it's something that I do before I go to bed. It takes about 5 minutes or so, and it helps me really reset the day. And the first thing I do is I review my core goals. What are my big goals I'm going after? What's my manifesto for life? What's the dream life I'm trying to achieve? And review those first to help me reset why I'm doing what I'm doing, especially if it was a tough day. But on top of that, this helps give me a clear North Star to work towards that's really, really clear. And then I start writing down in my journal the answer to a few questions. So question number 1, hey, what are my wins today that brought me closer to making my manifesto a reality? So again, these could be micro wins, these could be actions I took, this could be deep work that I did. It doesn't have to be an outcome or a closed deal or revenue generated. It's just things that I did today that's considered a win. And this could be anything as simple as I had a plan in place and I executed on the plan. And if it's useful for you, sometimes I'll just answer the question, hey, what am I grateful for? What made me smile today? And I make sure every single day I write down at least 3 wins. And no, not every single one is going to be a sales win. Sometimes it's simple as I made a plan to walk 10,000 steps and I made sure I did it. You know, I ate clean and stuck to my plan for the way I wanted to eat. Or I had a great time, you know, reading books with my son, and it was a lot of fun. So every day I'm identifying 3 wins at minimum, if not more, that I'm really appreciative of. And this is a really cool thing to do. The second question I answer as part of this journaling exercise is, what decisions did I make today? Now, these are not just like the little decisions like I chose to wake up at 6 a.m. It's more so if I made a decision that potentially could impact the future, what decision was that? And the reason I do this is because oftentimes we make decisions right now and we may not see the actual tailwind or the result for months, quarters, or even years after. So this is why anytime I make a change in anything I normally do, I'll actually notate down. So for instance, if I decided to hire a new person for a new role I've never hired before, I'm going to put that in there. If I decide to try a new type of workout moving forward, I'm going to put that in there. Again, this is really powerful later on when you actually reflect back on the decisions you make and you're like, wow, because of this decision I made 7 months ago, this is the result I have today. And you can apply this to really everything in your life. So this is not just from your sales career, this is really everything that you do. This increases your awareness of the decisions you are making so you can take a look and see how you can improve decision-making framework over time. The next question I answer is, what did I learn or realize today? What new insights did I realize or learn? And this is just a fun exercise because sometimes, especially if you had a tough day, you got kind of beat up or whatever, you know, even if you didn't read a book or listen to a podcast or watch a YouTube video, you probably learned from the situation. And this is a really great prompt to help train your mind and think, okay, even if it was a tough day, what did I learn? Or if you did learn something new because you were going out and pursuing, like, you know, maybe reading a book or something or attending a course, adding a couple of your takeaways there helps you re-solidify in your brain what you actually realize. And the new insights piece is actually very interesting as well because this allows you to reflect back and see what lessons are you learning from the situation. So for instance, let's just say your boss tore you a new one today in your one-on-one. And yes, you can dwell on the beating you up and making you feel terrible, but was there anything you learned from that situation? Was there anything you could be more proactive about or do differently to help minimize the chances of that actually happening? And when you start thinking this way, this gets you into a solutions-focused mindset versus focusing on the problem. The next question I ask myself is, hey, how am I feeling about the day? And sometimes the day is absolutely garbage. That's just a reality. So I'll just dump everything, the good, the bad, the ugly right here. So this isn't any real category. This is more so just releasing the emotions, right? And, you know, I've done my best over time. That's not perfect, but before I would unleash the emotions from my day onto my family. And I felt like that wasn't fair to them. That really wasn't, right? You know, we're trying to have a good conversation or have a nice dinner or whatever. And if I'm not 100% myself and I'm being crabby, I really don't want to take it out on them. So I do need to release. So this is like my way to releasing it through writing every day of also just kind of emptying those emotions. And I think it's really key to have a place to kind of dump it out. But on top of that, sometimes when you write out how you feel, it's amazing how you may potentially feel better, but also see the situation a little bit differently because you're fortunate enough to actually write it out. Then I answer, what could I have done better today? And this is where I'm gonna look for the opportunities to really improve myself. So pretty simple. Now, my favorite question to answer, what's the one thing I can do tomorrow such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So again, this helps me focus the next day. Now, if I stuck to my plan where I plan tomorrow today, it should be very clear on exactly what one thing is. It should be built in my calendar. But this helps me re-solidify because, frankly, I'll forget. So this helps me again to look at my calendar again just to make sure I'm doing the right things. Because what you do today impacts what happens tomorrow. Now, I know what you're thinking. You might be like, my God, there's so many questions here. Realistically, doing this takes me about 5 minutes per night. And sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, sometimes I have more details, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how the day is feeling. It's just a way for me to just reset my day and also set myself up for the future. So again, something that works really well for me, maybe it'll work really well for you. Now, you don't have to have all these questions. Ultimately, you just pick 1 or 2 questions that really resonate for you. I would recommend, at the very least, you just at least write out, what are you grateful for? Your top 3 wins for each day. Just by the act of doing that, you'll see yourself start stacking a journal of wins that's gonna help you feel a lot better when you reflect on your week, your month, or your quarter. Number 3, weekly reset protocol. This is something I've been doing well over a decade now, and this really changed the game for me. So every Friday, I have what's called an executive review, and it's about a 1-hour block in my calendar. It's non-negotiable that I do every single Friday, and ultimately, I'm taking a look and seeing how well I'm managing my energy versus my time. And ultimately, time management is one way to kind of measure how you're doing things, but energy management is really, really important. So I go through a few different exercises as part of it. So let me kind of walk you through what that looks like. So the first thing I do is I reflect on the week, and I'll journal out and answer a few different questions, very similar to how I do it every single day, but I'll write it all out. The first question is, hey, what gave me energy this week? What made me smile? So what I'm doing here is I'm actually going through my daily win system, going through those journal entries, kind of seeing, hey, what was it that got me excited this week? Because I probably wrote out as being grateful for. I look at my calendar to see what I did as well and where I was at. And then I'll also actually look at photos on my phone, because sometimes I'm taking pictures of what I'm doing and it'll remind me like, oh yeah, that was really, really fun. This kind of ad hoc thing that we did, went to this park with a kiddo, and it was really, really cool or fun. And I'll just put that in there because it helps me identify what's giving me energy in the week. Then I'll answer this question. Hey, what stressed me out this week? What frustrated me this week? And again, this is where that daily win system is really powerful, because in case I forgot, I can go through and I can look at what I wrote in there. And here's the kind of interesting part, because now it's been at least one day or a few days since it's happened. It's amazing how you perceive it very differently now, because time has actually elapsed. So sometimes that stress is completely gone, or maybe that stress still exists. And this helps me identify, okay, what is this core problem that really worries me? So this forces me to really think about what's the core problem at hand and what do I need to try to do to fix this problem. The next question I ask myself is, hey, what's the number one constraint in the business currently? And ultimately, I have realized in my own life, if I'm not where I want to be at, whether it's business, sales, or anything else, that means there's some constraint that's holding me back. If I can identify that number one constraint, then I can focus on trying to solve that problem. But here, I'm just taking myself through a very simple exercise to help solve the problem for myself. It's like I'm coaching myself through this weekly reflection. So then I'll ask myself, hey, what can we do more of or better to solve the constraint? And this is really intentional. This is a new question that I added in the last several months or so, because ultimately, when I was running into constraints, I would go and I would try to actually do new different things. And sometimes we don't need to actually do anything new. We just need to do things better and more of the current thing. So then I'll actually ask myself, only after more and better are exhausted, what new thing can we do to solve the constraints? This helps prevent me from that shiny thing syndrome, which is so easy for me to fall into. Then I answer, what decisions did I make this week? Why did I make it? What are my expected outcomes from it? So again, this goes back to the decision-making framework that I'm thinking through, and I'll reflect on my daily win system and look at those decisions I made and add these here in a collection so I can see, oh, wow, interesting. I made these 3 interesting decisions this week. Why did I make that? What am I expecting to get from that? Was it a good decision? And sometimes I'll reverse the decision because of that. So again, this helps bring a lot of awareness to myself on what I'm doing, how I'm making decisions. Then I answer, hey, what struggle, challenge, or hardship am I going through right now will become the story I tell to inspire others in the future. And I'm a little bit of a weirdo, but when I get hit with a hardship or struggle or challenge, it's really easy for me to get sucked into woe is me, I'm not good enough, I suck at this, and find excuses, externally about why I'm not where I want to be at or why something failed. And that's a really bad place to be. So this question helps me reframe what I'm thinking about, because ultimately, when I look at my own life, the biggest challenges I've ran into have become the best stories to share with other people in the future, to help inspire other people, to help them realize, hey, you know what? It's okay to go through problems, right? So this is a really good exercise that forced me to answer this question, especially when I go through a tough time. Now, if there's nothing to put down that week, I'm not going to put anything down. But if I can, I'll put something down as well. Then my next question, this is more so a business question, which is, hey, who can I delegate, recruit, or hire to solve this problem better and faster? So this is a very, very important question for me to ask myself. I had this in about a year ago after I read the book Who Not How, because I realized, man, like I'm trying to solve all these problems I have in the business, but sometimes I just need to hire someone better to actually solve it better and faster. And the last question, hey, what's the one thing I can do next week that will have the greatest impact on my 12-week plan, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. Again, this really helps me focus on what's most important for the business that ties to a 12-week plan. And this helps me look at my next week's calendar to make sure I'm doing the right things. It probably took me longer to explain what those questions are than actually doing it, because really when I actually do this, it takes me maybe 3 to 5 minutes. All right, so sometimes a little bit longer depending on the week, but it's actually relatively easy to actually answer these questions, okay? And I just journal out inside of Obsidian, which is where I take notes. The next what I do is actually will score my 12-week year. So I have a little scoring template that I use inside Notion that I built, and some people can download the PDF guide off the 12-week site, but I literally go and I score, did I do the actions I told myself I was going to do for the 12-week year? So it's really, really simple. This helps me reset again, because if I didn't do those things, now I can make sure I allocate for the upcoming week and plan accordingly for the upcoming week. And third, I'll review how the rest of my time was spent and take a look at what can I actually eliminate on my calendar that drained my energy, that didn't actually serve me, and where can I add in more time blocks for doing the right things. And then the next 3 things are relatively simple, but this helps me really clear my mind, which is I will go and I'll clear or organize some of my inboxes. So that I take a lot of notes in Obsidian, so note-taking app, and we'll clear out those notes that maybe were quick notes I had taken for the week. I'll take a look at Notion as well, kind of same thing as well. And my email inbox is always taken care of by my executive coordinator, who is absolutely awesome. So we'll have that completely down. But I want to walk out of the week completely clean and refreshed for the upcoming week. Then number 5, I'll clear the desktop to my laptop. So just throughout the week, I'll save like random images or screenshots or attachments or whatever on the desktop. And if I don't take care of it, it actually will build up over time. It's actually overwhelming. So what I'll do is, as part of this executive review every single week, is I'll just delete, save the right ones, empty the trash out, make it completely good. And then the last thing I'll do is actually clean my desk. So I'll actually go and I'll wipe down and sanitize my keyboard, my mouse, my desktop, and everything. I'll dust everything and just have a really clean desk. Ultimately, what I'm doing is I'm resetting the whole week. So when I go back into work next week, everything's ready to go. I have a clear focus on what I'm going to work on. My workspace is dialed. I'm ready to have a lot of fun and execute on my 12-week year. Now, all in all, this weekly reset protocol, it may seem like a lot, but it'll take me maybe a total of everything I just mentioned, maybe 30 to 60 minutes max. But this helps me just get completely reset so I feel a lot better. And this is something where I've done a variation of this as a rep, as a manager, as a director, as an exec, as a CEO. It has helped me just completely shift my mindset of wrapping the week up really strong, so I don't get that Sunday-itis on Sunday worrying about how the week is going to look. Let's go into the 4th piece, which is what's called monthly optimization. So the first thing I do is I do a monthly business review for myself. Again, this is an MBR. I'm not doing with anybody else for myself. This is something I recommend you do for yourself as well, so you can take a look and understand all your core metrics. For instance, the first thing I'll do is I'll take a look at total impressions across all platforms so I can see how our content is performing across the board. Then I'll look at total leads for the business. And then I'll look for each business unit. I'll look at number of book calls, the show-up rate, the win rate, the ACV. And then I'll look at total revenue and also cash collected. This gives me a snapshot of the overall business. Now, as an AE, yours is going to be a variation of that, right? And you want to create your own. But for instance, you're going to want to include stuff like your outbound metrics. For example, your number of calls, your connector rate, conversion rate, number of emails, open rate, reply rate, booking rate, number of book calls, your show-up rate, your win rate, your ACV. Now, you can always add in more numbers as it depends on what you want to measure. And ultimately, your goal is to have a very clear snapshot of exactly where you stand and where you want to go. And then you can identify leverage points or patterns and trends to make different shifts in your actions that may make you pivot what you want to do for this next coming month or quarter. And then next, I'll spend a little time just journaling. I'll just kind of bullet out, different headlines or updates from business side and personal side. What are things that maybe are exciting or new that are different? And I'll put little bullet points of what happened, right? And here's the beautiful part. Because I've been doing my consistent daily win system, I'll have a bunch of those to pull from right inside there by kind of going through that in case I forgot. I can look at my calendar, but I'll find different ways to see, okay, what are the key updates for those 2 categories. And then I want to go into learning lessons in which we want to identify what to start doing, what to stop doing, and what to continue doing. So this allows me to reflect back, okay, what do I want to start doing that could potentially help me? What do I want to stop doing that's hurting me? And what do I want to continue doing that could continually help my business? Then I look at constraints. What are constraints of the business? And you can do the same thing. What are constraints that you're running into for your own business as well? Do you need more leads? Do you need more book calls? Do you need more sales? Do you need more profit? What are the key constraints that's holding you back from getting you to where you want to actually go? And then I write out a couple of key things for my next month. What's my goal for the next month? What's my primary theme or top priorities? Now here's a really cool part. If you're executing the other parts of the process I shared earlier, from your 12-week year to daily win system to the weekly reset protocol, doing this exercise only really takes maybe 15 to 30 minutes max once per month. But it forces you to pause and take a look at what's really going on and also plan ahead. So this way you can be more proactive in running your actual business. And this is not just for your sales or for your career. You can apply the same principle to your own personal life as well. Because if you realize, man, I need to spend more time with my family, you can make those pivots to make sure you're planning ahead to do the things you want to do so you live the life you actually want to live. And then once you define what's really working, you continue to scale what actually works across the board. So that is my 4-part productivity system I've used to run and drive a $195 million a year sales organization. Now, if you want our help to help you improve your routine so you can blow out your sales targets, or if you want to train your team to do the same, go ahead and book a call below. And if you want to learn the 7 sales habits that save me over 4 hours a day, I'll see you in this next video right here.